Hi, welcome back to The Perspective. I'm Blaise Hope, and with me in the studio is David Adelman, former US ambassador to Singapore. Moving away from Singapore for a moment to Myanmar, which has always been a topic of discussion the past couple of years. You have spent some time there?
Yes, I have, and I was fortunate enough to lead the first American business mission to Naypyidaw, the capital of Myanmar.
Economic sanctions by the US there, how has that changed? How will that change?
Well, I think we should back up and look at where we started just a few years ago. At one time, not too long ago, Myanmar, from the American and European perspective, was quite isolated economically. Mm-hmm. And in the summer of 2012, in July of 2012, as a result of what I thought was some great diplomacy by Derek Mitchell, our U.S. ambassador in Myanmar, and then Secretary of State Clinton, on what was called a step-by-step or action-by-action matching of reforms in Myanmar, matched by easing of economic restrictions and sanctions on Myanmar, has been very effective. So we've come a long way. And as a result, you see American businesses moving around Myanmar, investors looking for opportunities in Myanmar. But to be sure, as was expected, it's a slow process. From time to time, there are setbacks, but directionally, I think we should all feel pretty good about where Myanmar is, especially as compared to where we were before July of 2012.
So do you think it could be a situation of explosive growth in the coming years, or do you think it's just not quite ready, not quite ripe?
You know, it's hard to say. There's so much excitement, and there was tremendous excitement, especially at the end of 2012 and in 2013. The reality is economic reforms and economic development are very difficult, and they usually occur on a more gradual, steady basis, as opposed to the explosive type of growth that some people had forecast for Myanmar. I think it's probably going to be steady as it goes, as Western investors continue to look for opportunities to invest in constructive, socially responsible ways in Myanmar. But I'm bullish. I think that the outlook for Myanmar is bright.
Further outlook, wider outlook in the region is for ASEAN. The ASEAN Economic Community comes into effect at the end of this year, and this is coming up constantly. Everyone wants to be part of this, wants to be involved. What's your prediction for the immediate effect of this partnership?
Well, again, I don't know that 2015 comes and goes, and there's some big aha. I think, again, economic development, and especially economic integration, when you're talking about 10 economies that represent a very broad range of development, is more of a gradual experience. So it's been a positive 10 years. It's a very ambitious program, obviously, and there have been some milestones met and some milestones, frankly, not met. I think the key for ASEAN economic cooperation and the integration is for the work to continue, for the leaders of these important countries to recognize that it wasn't a one-off 10-year program. It's a process which has as its purpose a harmonization and integration of the economy so as to help all of the economies, regardless of which end of the range they may be on. I spent a lot of time looking at harmonization and integration of the capital markets so that the capital markets in the ASEAN countries would deepen. I know there's been great success on customs and a single window customs regime. All of these are really small steps, but as is often said, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And I think that's the way we should all think about the ASEAN economic community, that this is a journey, and the key will be for leaders, both business leaders, government leaders, and even civic leaders to redouble their commitment to the integration.
Can capital markets harmonize?
Well, sure, it's challenging. If it happens, I think you'll see investment flows increase greatly in this part of the world. And harmonize doesn't mean that a particular country's control over its capital market is surrendered. It only means that some uniformity will create the type of reliability and certainty investors need.
Do you think any of the fears about collapses of domestic industry are viable, or do you think they would have already happened?
Well, it's hard to say. You know, the world economy is very dynamic, and there's disruption very often. For the most part, I think the economies in this part of the world have a pretty strong base. And to go back to one of our earlier segments, Blaise, I think the success of the Trans-Pacific Partnership can undergird and protect the economies in the competing countries from the very dynamic ups and downs of the business cycle. That's part of the reason I think the TPP and the American pivot to Asia is so beneficial, not just to the United States, but especially to our partners here in this part of the world. In some ways, it'll be a bulwark against the swings that we have seen in the global economy over the last 10 years.
What would be the most important thing that you would impart to, say, a successor coming into Asia? First of all, in your post as a diplomat.
Well, it's been a few years since I've been the U.S. ambassador in Singapore. We have a very talented group of ambassadors throughout Southeast Asia. Ambassador Blake here in Jakarta is one of the very best. I think the hallmark of a good diplomat, whether they be an American diplomat, a diplomat from Indonesia, for any other part of the world, is to be a good listener. I think that if you build a network of people, not just in government, but in business and in civil society, and you listen to them, then you can do your job of carrying their message, their sentiments back to Washington, and work together with the State Department, the Defense Department, the White House, to ensure that American policies are calibrated in a way so as to be constructive, so that the United States can partner with our friends around the world for the mutual security and prosperity of the people of both the United States and the people in our partner countries.
And in your capacity as a private sector now, what would you say is the most important thing for someone who doesn't know about Indonesia or about Southeast Asia to get to know?
Well, we talk to our clients about the growth and power of the Indonesian market, and especially the potential. We also talk to our American clients about the affection the people of Indonesia have for the United States. We think as reforms continue in Indonesia, if protectionism is resisted here, that it will create great investment opportunities for our American clients. When we talk to our clients in Asia, it's a very easy story to tell about the attractiveness of the American markets. They've always been interested in investing in the United States and pursuing American consumer markets. And we think increasingly as multinational corporations go across borders and across oceans, we think Indonesia presents a great opportunity for our clients. At Reed Smith, we're a very large law firm with large offices in Hong Kong, Singapore, offices in Shanghai, Beijing, many offices in Europe, and dozens of offices in the United States. And we're continuously talking to our clients about the prospects for success in the Asian markets.
Well, we're running out of time. A final word.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. It's always great to be back in Indonesia. The United States pivot to Asia, I think, presents the opportunity for a legacy for President Obama. It's the part of the work I did as an American diplomat that makes me most proud, and I'm delighted to continue to be part of America's pivot to Asia in my new role in the private sector.
Great. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Blaise.
Join us next time on The Perspective. A lot of topics have come up today. See you around.